Back when I was a young witch, alchemy was all the rage. Everybody was doing it. You couldn't walk through a town without someone trying to sell you some sort of potion or remedy. Of course, back then no one really knew what they were doing, and most of those potions were really just poison or some kind of illicit substance. Well, we decided to reignite that old alchemist spirit and craft up some potions of our own, but without the illicit substance part.
I can't help but notice you didn't say anything about leaving the poison part out. You did leave that part out, right?
Don't be ridiculous, Mr. Freeman. There's no way of knowing if it's poisonous without testing it first. So be a dearie and let me know how you're feeling in the next few minutes.
Oh, come on. Not this shit again.
That should keep him occupied for a little while. Idiot. Now what was I saying? Oh, I remember. Back in those days, whenever I went into town, I tied an onion to my belt, which was the style at the time.
Alright, now that Bubba has worn herself out by telling a long-winded story that went nowhere, and Mr. Freeman is outside trying to puke up poison that he did not consume, I might finally be able to get through one of these videos without any distractions. So, my apprentices recently saw this trend of people creating these cool decorative potion bottles, and decided they would like to try making some of their own. Honestly, I think they just wanted an excuse to buy more stuff from the thrift store. But after they told me what their idea was for the first potion bottle, I couldn't say no to them. So after coming up with the idea, and deciding which bottle to use, the hermit gets to work. He used a green alcohol-based ink as a dye for the main color of this potion, which worked. But it did leave behind these little chunky bits, which I guess helps add to the toxic vibe we were going for with this one. But it might not be what you're looking for if you decide to try making one yourself. So be warned. Oh, come on. What the hell was that? I really hope that doesn't stain the glass. And it stained the glass? Of course. Why wouldn't it? Whatever. It's fine. I'm sure he will find some kind of way to fix it. But knowing him, he will probably just cover it up with a label or something like that, I'm sure. It looks like he is at least going to seal the bottle and give it a good shake to try and clean some of it off. Which did kind of help. A little, I guess. Whatever, we are not going to dwell on it. Now that he has managed to get most of it cleaned off, we can move on to the next step, which is adding that cool shiny swirl effect that you often see with these decorative potions. To do this, we used a combination of different colored mica powders. For the colors, we went with this nice purple and a gunmetal black to really give it that poisonous vibe. After mixing each color into its own cup of water, we can add them both to the final bottle. Give it a good stir, and just like that we have our first potion done. The only thing left to do is seal it shut, and add the final touches. To keep this sealed, we used a couple layers of UV resin around this glass cork thing, whatever the hell it's called. For the final touches, we wrapped the neck of the bottle with some old string we had sitting around, as well as this tooth that we are currently running low on, which means I'll have to make a trip to the teeth dealer soon. I hate dealing with tooth fairies. They're annoying little freaks, and they always overcharge for their teeth. Anyways, before slapping the label on and calling it good, the hermit applies a layer of Mod Podge over them, in order to give them a more textured look. Instead of looking like the generic box label that it is, the only thing left to do was put the labels on, find it a nice home on a shelf, and then move on to the next one. The second potion we made was this Dr. Big Brain's Elixir of Universal Knowledge. For this one, we wanted less of the swirly effect, and more of a starry night sky look, so we went with a violet alcohol ink for the base color, and we tried using a black alcohol ink to darken it up a little, but it had no effect. Like literally none. All it did was the same chunky big thing the green ink did, but with no change to the watercolor. We also used significantly less mica powder in this one, to really try and cut down on the swirling effect. The next step for this one was getting the cork ready. And since we didn't have a cork that fit this bottle, we had to whittle one down. We also knew we wanted the cork to look like a chunk of brain, so this was the perfect time to give it that chunky brain look. Next, we painted the cork bright pink, Because apparently, our only true reference to the color of a brain comes from cartoons. After the base layer of pink was dried, we went back over it with a darker pink wash and dabbed off the excess with a paper towel. Once that was done, we could take it outside and spray it with a glossy clear coat to help give it that slimy brain vibe. Now that we're done with that part, we can cork off this bottle and seal it with some more UV resin. This time we used a crystal king to dye the resin, which really helped give it that drippy brain juice look we wanted. And since drippy was what we were going for, we added some nice little drips coming down the neck of the bottle, as well as some to the top of the cork, to really give it that gooey brain chunk vibe we were looking for, which in the end turned out looking really cool. Now it's time to label this bottle and find its home on a shelf as well. We'll call this one a success and move on to the next one, which is a bit more, well, you'll see. So the idea for this particular bottle comes from a homebrew item that the hermit likes to give to his more adventurous D&D players. And now we are going to share it with you, so you can also watch your players set your world, and probably themselves on fire. So we proudly present to you the Wild Magic Molotov, concentrated wild magic in an easy-to-hold and easy-to-throw glass bottle. Warning, this bottle contains a dangerous amount of concentrated chaos magic and should be used with extreme caution. The makers of this item are not responsible for the loss of hair, limbs, or psychic damage, as well as the possibility of polymorphing an ally into a sheep. Use at your own risk. Okay, now that that's out of the way, let's talk about the creation process for this one. We knew we wanted this to look like a Molotov, with a rag hanging out into everything. However, our concern was the rag would actually soak up too much of the liquid inside and cause problems later on. But after a couple tests, we ended up going with this resealable glass bottle that hasn't given us any problems. We also tried to be a little more accurate and careful this time around. And instead of adding into the water in a glass bottle, we filled the bottle to the level we wanted. And then we transferred that water to these paper cups before we added our dye and mica powder. We also went with a different type of dye for this one, since we weren't happy with the way the orange alcohol ink was turning out. Once again, it wanted to chunk up on us. I know, big surprise. So instead of an alcohol ink, we picked up some food dye gel that we found in the food-related section of Michael's, and it worked significantly better. Then we went with a red mica powder to help give us that fiery look we were going for. Once our cups of water had achieved peak coloration, we could proceed to pouring them back into the bottle, which is one of the most satisfying parts to watch. Sorry, I zoned out there for a minute. It's just mesmerizing, like staring into a fire. Anyway, after we finished filling it, the only thing left to do was put in a rag, seal it off, and slap on our label. And since this bottle already had a good resealable lid, we didn't have to use any UV resin to seal it. Instead, we just tied down the metal clasp with a bunch of this twine to prevent it from coming undone. Now in hindsight, we should have used a different label or a different bottle, because this label went on like shit. I mean, hell, it would have made more sense to just put it on the other side of the warning label. But that would have required him to use more brain cells than he's physically capable of using. I guess we could always try making another version in the future. But for now, we can call it good and move on to the last bottle. Alright, for this last one, there's actually two. Surprise! We just figured since they were identical bottles, and basically the same thing, we would show them at the same time.
I thought we were doing this because the hermit recorded these in a vertical orientation.
I forgot you were here, and I was so close to being done with this video. Why did you have to butt in? Also, who told you that?
The troll editor told me. He said, look at these dummies. They can't even record footage properly. He said some other things too, but I'm not going to repeat them because I am a distinguished gentleman. You can't tell by my hat.
Why the hell are we keeping him around? He is rude, overly opinionated, and he smells like hot burning garbage.
I figured we kept him around because he basically works for free, and he usually does a good job.
I don't know about good. That's a bit of a subjective opinion. but he does get the job done in a reasonable time. So at least he's good for something.
Sometimes I think you're too picky about things. Also, would it kill you to be a little nicer? Or a little optimistic?
Donnie,
Yeah. I know. Donnie, shut up. Donnie, go away. Donnie bears can't own property. I hate it here. I bet if I still had my bear body, you would all treat me with a little more respect, instead of treating me like I am some kind of joke. But no, you two are powerful witches that think you can do whatever you want without any consequences. Well, let me tell you something, sister. One of these days, all the terrible things you two do are going to come back and bite you in your witchy asses.
are you finished?
Yeah, I guess.
Well, for what it's worth, I'm sorry you feel that way. We only give you a hard time because we care about you. You're like family to us.
Do you really mean that?
Of course not. Now shut up so I can finish this video. Well, I guess that's the end of the video. Sorry I didn't really explain anything about that last one. I got a little distracted, but I'm sure you get the idea. It's a pretty fun and simple process that really anyone could do. I mean, my apprentices did, and they're dumb as shit. Anyway, thank you for watching the video. As always, we hope you enjoyed it. And before we go, we would like to give a special thank you to our subscribers. As a small up-and-coming channel, your support means a lot to us. We are extremely grateful to have you here, and your comments often brighten our day. Also, if you are new here, and you've made it this far, then please like and leave a comment as well. And don't forget to subscribe, or I will come to your home in the middle of the night and give your pet the zoomies.